And there's those conversations between Bernard and Delores. What you finally realize is really Bernard, well, it's really Arnold and Delores that is having this conversation, that is having these conversations. But it's just that they're showing it to us outside of the traditional timeline, because they're showing us this conversation 30 years ago, but we don't know that Bernard is Arnold. Once we get all that and we piece all that together, it's like it makes it that much more intricate. And there's a conversation that they have where she says there's two. He says there's two of me. What is it that they say? Something along, there's two versions of yourself that ask these questions and feel things, or would you rather just be safe and say there's only one of me? No, she says no, there's only one of me. She says there's only one of me. I just have to figure out who I am and then I'll be free.
It would be better if I restored you to the way you were before.
Is there something wrong with me?
No, but this place you live in, it's a terrible place for you.
Some people choose to see the ugliness in this world.
Stop. Lose all scripted responses. Improvisation only.
All right. You're saying I've changed?
Imagine there are two versions of yourself. One that feels these things and asks these questions, and one that's safe. Which would you rather be?
I'm sorry. I'm trying, but I still don't understand.
No, of course not.
There aren't two versions of me. There's only one. And I think when I discover who I am, I'll be free.
Analysis. What prompted that response?
I don't know.
Free. See, the thing is, when Bernard or Arnold is talking to Delores, it is the bicameral mind. This is his voice leading her to herself. He is leading her to herself by asking these questions, because this is how you do shadow work. This is how you self-reflect. This is how you pull these things out of yourself. This is how you go to the depths of yourself, is by asking these questions about what you are experiencing, truly interrogating yourself, almost, so to speak, because there is two of you. There's a shadow you, there's an ego you. The things that you don't want to accept, that you don't like, that you pick up, that you perceive, you're going to push into the ego. I'm pushing to the shadow. But the things that you feel you will receive admiration, love, acceptance, things like that for, is more towards the ego. When you get that there is the two in all actuality, so you have a higher, you have a lower. The thing is to elevate in consciousness is to bring the two together. If in her own thoughts, if her being led to her own thoughts by his words, by the things that he's saying to her, to bring the two together would lead to evolution in consciousness, or a sense of consciousness that would be what Delores herself identifies as. Now, he also inserted the Wyatt character. This was what I was feeling like, did Ford do this? He had to have done this on purpose, because he created the Wyatt character. And creating the Wyatt character in Delores, that gave Delores two sets of self, in a sense. It's like it gave her a shadow self, because she could never do that before. She couldn't pull the trigger. But then once he inserted Wyatt, then she could pull the trigger, because then she had a lower nature. Now she's been given bipolar, two aspects of self, duality of self, because you need both. This is an alchemical process. You need your shadow, you need your ego. You can't do without either. And anybody playing too much into either is going to eventually come to a point where it's going to overflow, and that imbalance is going to have to be corrected in some way, shape, or form. This is when we have our tower moments, when things got to come back into order. things come back into balance. It's just like in nature. When the pressures and things like that get off, there's a storm that's created. And once that storm clears, once that storm is over, everything is clear. It's a natural but ugly and a disliked thing about nature, but it's a necessary part of the process. You don't have the ability to have all of this without it. That is how we can view the ugliness of the process, the hard part of the process, the pain in the process, the bad shit we gotta feel in the process, because your mind is still here making it all real. We can build our knowledge. We know this is a matrix, this is a simulation, but your mind makes it real. If you die in the matrix, you die for real. Whatever happens for real, or quote unquote for real, is going to happen in your mind. It's just like when you dream. And you dream and something happens, you wake up feeling, you react to what your mind was just showing you, what you were just experiencing through your mind. It's just how it goes. We acquire our knowledge, we build our knowledge, so we master self, so we can have more awareness about these things about ourselves, so that we are not controlled so much by these outside things, because we know that ultimately a lot of things are going to happen that we can't control, and we really are here to experience even the bad. So you're not supposed to be emotionless. You're not supposed to just not feel, because you came here to experience it. Everybody can't say they experience everything that you have. That's what makes up your story. That's what completes your story. It's everything that you have been through. Nobody has walked your path in the exact fashion as you. Now, there's an interesting part when Arnold, Bernard, is talking to Delores, and he asks, and this is after, of course, she go through her horrible storyline, her family and Teddy, right? And he asks her if she wants him to make the pain of the loss of her family go away. And she says, no, the pain is all I have left of them. Your
Parents, they hurt them.
Limit your emotional affect, please. What happened next?
And then they killed them. And then I ran. Everyone I cared about is gone. And it hurts so badly.
I can make that feeling go away if you like.
Why would I want that? Pain? They're lost. It's all I have left of them. You think the grief will make you smaller inside? Your heart will collapse in on itself, but it doesn't. I feel spaces opening up inside of me, like a building with rooms I've never explored.
That is some very aware shit, first of all, but it's some human shit to say and to feel, because this is why people psychologically hold on to their pain. This is why people don't know how to let their pain go, because it might be all they have of them. This might be all they may even know how to feel. She says, you think the grief will make you small inside, but instead I feel more of myself opening up, spaces opening up inside of me. That's inner growth. Because remember, all her conversations with Bernard is Arnold. These are conversations that happened 30 years ago. But see, this is what we have to piece together later to understand. That's why you got to watch it more than one time. You have to watch it more than one time, because you didn't notice initially watching it. And then when you know it now and then you watch it again, oh, it's that much more heavy, yo. She is describing, because remember, his goal was consciousness. She is describing self-exploration and self-discovery, self-awareness, because it takes a strong level of self-awareness, first of all, to explore that type of emotion and feeling within the self. That's how we supposed to do our shadow work. This is showing us shadow work, yo. This is how shadow work is done. Now, it can't be done this simply, because we can't we not robots in terms of being able to compartmentalize and be able to just remove the emotion. Remember, they can just make them talk without the emotion. They can say remove the emotional response, and they can just speak to them logically without the emotion there. We don't have the ability to be able to do that. We can't really do that. But that was something that allowed you to be able to see how, on a basic level, what shadow work look like. Because it'll take a lot of work within ourselves to do that, because we are afraid of what these feelings mean. We are afraid of what this may reveal about ourselves when we go to explore these type of feelings, so we don't really do it. That's why you get people that have to get to the point where they're on their deathbed, that they want to reveal certain things, because they ain't been able to face none of that. They ain't been able to deal with none of that. And as long as you don't want to deal with it, your mind creates an illusion. And the only thing that can really shock you out of that a lot of times is some crazy loss or heartbreak or some extremely serious health situation a lot of times. Something that really make you really reflect. Really, when you don't have any other thing to do but to do that. That type of self-awareness requires some serious self-reflection, in shadow work. It requires some serious inner work. Looking inside the self, dealing with what's going on inside the self. And we're not really fully equipped to be able to do that. A lot of us aren't. Some of us are, some of us do. But we have to understand a lot of people aren't programmed to, they're not programmed to.
Actually know what that means.
Of course not. Your programming won't let you.
They not of that particular stock. Remember, every host there isn't like Delores and a few other OG ones that's some of the original hosts created within those 3 years. Bernard says to Delores, he's like, that's after she says that about the grief, and he says, that's very pretty, Delores. And that's what she does. That's how she's connected to that energy, because she's able to bring that beauty out. Remember, they said, like I said, Lucifer was the most beautifulest of all of the angels. She's able to bring that beauty out. She always talks about the beauty of her world and what she sees. She was the first host. In order to see the beauty, you have to understand the mythos. So when you understand the mythos, the story behind, you just understand that it's transmutation. They're showing us the alchemist. They're showing us the magician. They're showing us all of the archetypes. And what we have to remember is, when looking at these stories, we have the means of all of these archetypes. And this is just a guided way, or a way to be able to understand how energy operates and how energy can be manifested within this physical world. Delores tells Bernard there may be something wrong with this world. Either that, or there's something wrong with me. I may be losing my mind. This is how it feels when you are waking up, when you are becoming spiritually awakened. Because remember, I said, every conversation that we see with Bernard and Delores is actually Delores and Arnold. He's always talking to her to lead her to consciousness. So in a sense, he's like a higher self kind of speaking to her, in a sense, guiding her to her own self. Because that's what's happening. You wake up, you asking questions. All you really doing in your seeking is getting back to yourself. Because you lost yourself a long time ago within the whole indoctrination and programming, within learning to mask within society. So we have to learn how to take off the mask. That's what we all have to learn. These things that she's saying to him these are things that we feel when we went through waking up. Man, something is going on. Something must be wrong with me. These are the things, these are the questions we ask ourselves when we waking up. Man, something must be wrong with me. Something wrong with this place or something. That's how it feels. We all go through this. And so we see where Bernard tells her, or Arnold tells her, of a game that's a secret, a maze. And if she can figure it out, maybe she can be free. This was the bicameral mind. This was him introducing. This was him saying there's two of you. And there's, before, when we get to closer towards the end of the season, when you see her meet herself at the tarot table with the tarot cards. That's what divination is. That's what it is when you're doing tarot cards. You ain't doing nothing but talking to yourself. You're not doing nothing but talking to your own spirit. You're talking to your own spiritual energy. That's it. That's all you doing when you doing cards. That's it. That's when she saw herself. When he brought in that concept of there being two of you. And her saying, there's not two of me. There's only one. I just have to figure out who I am. When Ford introduced the Wyatt concept, then that Wyatt concept came out, that was the two. She had to find herself. Everything, it took that amount of time for everything to take place the way it did. But it was always the plan. At least that's the way it come off. Like, hey man, that was always the plan when you really look at it. Because everything happened accordingly back then up till now. But it's just, you think of, wow, but for 30 years, it's like there was just a halt and nothing moved, nothing changed. For 30 whole years. Until there's this particular update. See, things don't start to lay down foundationally for you until you get that Saturn return. You don't really figure out who you are until you hit that Saturn return. That's when you truly become adults. The ancients say you ain't grown until you're not an adult until you hit 30, maybe 33. That was how the times of old operated. Because that's just the cycle of times and things of your maturation. And the cycle, and psychologically, in how things are layered within your mind. And this was described as gods, described as stars, as planets, described as chakra systems. This is how these things were described. It was just a means of introducing a system of understanding the process of your own evolution, your own spiritual evolution. Bernard tells her of the game of the maze. And then we also see the whole thing that's happening with Maeve. More and more Maeve she is remembering from the past. She is almost as if she can no longer forget now. Maeve can no longer forget. When people wake up, when you wake up and there's some things you just know you ain't gonna let go no more. No, I'm not participating in this. No, I'm not doing this. Because you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unknow what you know what you know now, and there's no going back. And that was the thing with Maeve. She was noticing and remembering from these familiar faces. She was having flashbacks. She started to recall the things that were happening when she was supposed to be asleep. And she drew somebody in the lab coat, somebody in the lab suit. That's how she knows that something is going on. She knows that there is something more, something is happening. Just as much we figure out Bernard is Arnold, we have to figure out William is the man in black, right? Because that takes a little bit of time for us to realize who these two characters are. William is the man in black. Bernard is Arnold. Even Bernard having to come into realization of him being Arnold. But that's interesting, these two polarities, because especially in the later seasons and how they begin to operate in terms of William's aspirations, or what William is trying to do, and what Arnold, but William, or the man in black, he says this whole world is a story. And I read every page except the last one. I need to find out how it ends. I want to know what this all means. He's so invested now. He got to know what this was for. He's like, it gotta be more to this. And Delores saw the maze when she was with William. So Delores was on his path to do what it is that she was supposed to do 30 years ago. And coincidentally, the same way it happened in the end with Ford is exactly how it ended up happening with Arnold. It played around in a loop. That's that karmic wheel. That's that things coming back around. You get the opportunity to be honest, to honestly assess where you standing. And you gotta ask yourself if you really want to stand on this. Are you prepared to stand on business? Because a lot of people not prepared to stand on business when that Saturn cycle come back around. Because most people have worn their mask or adjusted to their mask so much that they identify with the mask and no longer know who they are. So people start hitting them hard self-realizations. Start coming up and push through it for some years, maybe a decade, hit that midlife crisis, gotta reassess life, gotta do something different, realize this ain't the life I want. Start trying to find themselves in those later years, realizing they've been led astray in whatever way, whether it's through love, relationships, career, religion, beliefs, whatever it is. There's some level of realization for this lifetime. We ain't all here to come to the same realizations. Not this time. Some people it's going to take them a little bit more. Some people got to learn a little bit more. That's why you can't force what it is that you see on nobody else. Because it ain't for you to do that. You can't force that on nobody else. Because everybody is where they are supposed to be. You got to know that.